That's definitely also very interesting to see. Yes, set up.
Oh, let's move it this way because this seat's not so great for it.
Yeah.
The other one.
Okay.
I saw your booth there. Oh, yeah.
It looks like
You're going to be here.
Okay.
1, 2, yeah, 3.
Okay.
You're going to be here.
Here.
And then 7's here. So I asked just your moderator, right? Okay, thank you.
Yes. Only 1 hour? Yeah. No, it's, it was supposed to be 2:30 to 3:45. Yeah.
So they changed it now?
Yeah.
2:45 to 3:45. So now even already late.
Yeah, already late.
Got everybody?
Good afternoon, distinguished delegates and participants. So this is the opening of the session, high-level session 3 towards a regional action agenda. And this session will be moderated by His Excellency Ayaz Sayed Qayyum, the Minister for Justice, Finance, Public Enterprises, Public Service, and Government of Fiji. So, and at this point, I will hand over to the moderator for the session to conduct the session. Thank you.
Thank you for that. Ladies and gentlemen, it's my pleasure to be the moderator and fill in for Her Excellency the Under Secretary, who is unable to be here because of some urgent matters. We have a distinguished panel here with us. We have Mr. Ajay Bandyapadi from KPMG, Maiza Hamid from Pakistan, Minister Corella Besau from Fiji, Mr. Dasho Nim Dorji from Bhutan, Mr. Membang Susantono from ADB, and Vinod Kaseva from CRX. Ladies and gentlemen, this is, of course, the final session of the high-level segment for climate action titled Towards the Regional Action Agenda. The Regional Climate Action Agenda identifies key priorities for the region and roles for governments, the private sector, development partners, and civil society to implement the Paris Agreement. The Regional Climate Action Agenda embodies the interface between state and non-state stakeholders of the region. It can help to move the region towards a roadmap for a low-carbon, climate-resilient future. The emphasis is on the policies, plans, and actions that can drive cost-efficient mitigation through carbon pricing, scale up ambition, and strengthen resilience and climate change adaptation in key economic sectors, and improve access to finance for climate action through innovative financing solutions. We are honored to have with us today, as I said, a very distinguished panel, and who will be sharing their experience and perspectives from the region. We've, of course, been joined by James Grabert from UNFCCC. Thank you, James. We'd also like to discuss the opportunities in this session for deepening the partnerships between public and private climate action for the Asia-Pacific region, and how we can strengthen the UN system and enhance its role as the regional coordinator to catalyst climate action. We will invite all the panelists to keep their interventions to 5 minutes, and I'll strictly enforce that. When I give a sound on the glass, please, you have only another 30 more seconds. Ladies and gentlemen, I'd like to invite, firstly, the Honourable Minister from Fiji, Honourable Semi Korolevesau, to make his intervention for 5 minutes. Thank you, Minister.
Thank you, Bulabinaka, and very good afternoon to you all. First of all, I would like to thank the organizers for setting up the platform and the opportunity to discuss the need to work towards a region climate action agenda. An agenda that at the outset signifies the importance of cooperations at all levels. It should now be widely recognized that regional cooperation must take place within a party and non-party stakeholders, private and financial institutions, to achieve the objectives of the Paris Agreement. In the course of this Asia-Pacific Climate Week, we have been informed of climate action initiatives and innovations currently taking place in our Asia-Pacific region. These initiatives and innovations need to be showcased widely, and lessons learned and experiences shared across the region. In this context, a regional partnership framework on climate action to facilitate and support such information exchange and South cooperation needs to be in place. The development of the regional climate action agenda can be seen in a framework. Ladies and gentlemen, I would like to share some thoughts on a regional action agenda specific to ocean and fisheries. Ocean is a thematic area of Climate Action Pacific Partnership, otherwise known as ESCAP, and the Marrakesh Partnership for Global Climate Action. The Ocean Working Group of the CAP made the following recommendations with regards to a regional approach to strengthen climate action in the ocean sector. 1, to develop a concept for the UNFCCC technical examination process that focuses on oceans and climate in efforts to strengthen the ocean sector in the formal UNFCCC process. 2, involve our Pacific experts in the UNFCCC technical expert meeting and in other relevant international bodies to elevate ocean issues in the Pacific region to the global stage. 3, ensure coordinated global and regional approach to research and monitoring to inform decision makers and policies, including building technical capacity for Pacific Island countries in research. 4th, to expand and support the work on community-led ecosystem-based adaptations, including protection and restoration of natural ecosystems such as the blue carbon, sink mangroves and seagrasses, offshore habitats, improve fisheries management. 5th, to develop a regional integrated action plan for the UN conference call for action. 6th, to integrate climate action on ocean in the Pacific SDG roadmap. 7th, to expand the Pacific Climate Change Portal to include oceans and the role of non-state actors. Those recommendations will be reflected in the CAP work program currently under development and hopefully can be transferred to the Asia-Pacific Climate Action Agenda. In terms of the engagement of the private and public, it should be obvious that the ocean connects many sectors in the Pacific and requires the involvement of an array of partners and actors to safeguard the valuable and varied services and resources provided in the ocean. In Fiji, we have a strong fisheries sector from local fishers to large commercial industries like tuna canning industry. Climate change will affect the migratory patterns of our commercial fish stock like tuna, and this raises the need to update research and monitoring and accompanying strategies. This calls for partnership between research institutions, governments, and private sector in order to safeguard the future of these industries, the livelihood of workers, and the national economy. I would also like to quickly mention the mitigation climate action associated with oceans. In our small islands, the success of blue economy and blue bonds is dependent on the commitment of various actors. It is dependent on local coastal communities who depend on marine resources for their livelihood. It is dependent on our agriculture producers whose land use practice will affect adjacent marine resources. It is dependent on local government authorities who are hard-pressed to progress with the development of coastal areas. It is dependent on the private sector and investors who are after attractive and lucrative investments. And of course, it is dependent on government to provide a conducive investment environment to ensure a coordinated approach among the various sectors and local governments and ensures measures are in place to support overall sustainable development. And I thank you.
Thank you, Minister. Thank you for that, Minister. I didn't have to do the double sound. Just stopped in time. Thank you. I'd like to now, of course, move from an oceanic country to a landlocked country, and I'd like to invite the Secretary of Finance from the Kingdom of Bhutan, Mr. Dasho Nimdorji, and ask Mr. Dorji if you could share with us the priorities for landlocked countries like Bhutan for climate change adaptation investments, the challenges that Bhutan faces in accessing sufficient financing to cover these, and the role of green bonds or other promising channels of finance. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Moderator, Excellencies, distinguished delegates, ladies and gentlemen. I would like to thank ESCAP for giving this excellent opportunity to speak at the high-level segment for climate action along with other eminent panelists. I will briefly touch upon the priorities for a landlocked developing country like Bhutan with respect to climate change adaptation investment, the challenges Bhutan faces in accessing sufficient financing for adaptation and mitigation. Bhutan is a landlocked, least developed country located in a fragile, mountainous environment in the Himalayas. The economy is very small with a GDP of about $2.3 billion. More than 58% of the population is engaged in agriculture, so that's the reality. The overarching goal of development in Bhutan is self-reliance and inclusive green socio-economic development. Rural government of Bhutan is committed to remain carbon neutral, indeed carbon negative as of now, despite other pressing social and economic development needs and priorities. The total emission is about 2.2 million tons of CO2 against a forest sink of 6.3 million tons of CO2. So a surplus for 4.2 million tons of CO2 as per 2013 survey. However, Bhutan remains highly vulnerable to the impacts of climate change and has been disproportionately bearing the impacts of climate change. Such high-level forums like these provide an excellent opportunity for us to share our stories, network our challenges, and seek joint support for a common cause, the climate change. Adaptations to adverse impact of climate change is a priority for Bhutan. Besides being a landlocked and least developed countries with fragile mountain ecosystem, Bhutan is further threatened by climate change due to the high dependence of population on agriculture and significant role of hydropower for our economic development. Bhutan also faces the threat from climate hazards and extreme events such as flash floods, glacial lake outbursts, windstorms, forest fires, and landslides. Bhutan prepared its national adaptation program for action in 2006 and also updated in 2012 and is now implementing few of the priorities, actions identified as urgent and immediate needs. For the medium to long term, Bhutan views the process to formulate and implement national adaptation plan as an important means towards reducing vulnerability by both integrating climate change adaptation into national development planning and also implementing priority adaptation actions on the ground. Top priorities of adaptation, 10 top adaptation needs identified to address impact of climate change includes water security, promoting climate resilient agriculture, environment services, minimizing climate-related health risk, building climate-proof transport infrastructure, climate-resilient livestock, enhancing climate information services for vulnerability and adaptation assessment and planning, promoting clean, renewable, and climate-resilient energy generation, integrate climate-resilient and low-emission strategies in urban and rural settlements through promotion of climate-smart cities. So these are some of the adaptation priorities that has been identified and government is already investing. While investment is being made as a response to climate action, implementing these actions, support from global community will be critical for us to succeed. In terms of climate financing, Bhutan is dependent on development partners for major investment in climate change adaptation investment as the domestic resources is adequate to meet the recurring costs of the government only. At the national level, attempts have been made to diversify climate financing as follows. Fiscal measures. Green tax has been introduced a few years back on vehicles and fuels to mitigate climate change impacts and also discourage polluting elements. Trust funds, innovative finance mechanism has been introduced for trust fund for environment conservation. Further initiatives underway to establish an endowment fund for crop and livestock conservations. PPP has been introduced and will be used to leverage private sector financing for climate financing. Capital market, especially focusing on the opportunity for development of green bond is being explored and ESCAP is already helping Bhutan to achieve these goals. Well, at the global level, Bhutan has successfully implemented 126 megawatt Dagachu hydropower project with ADB financing under the CDM mechanism and is already practicing in cross-border trading of CERs and has realized carbon financing to develop, even cover up its cost overruns. Further, the future for carbon financing presents and positive opportunities for Bhutan since we have so many hydropowers to finance, to access carbon financing. Well, lastly, despite the cautious approach to development by balancing the need for environmental conservation and economic development, climate change threatens to reverse the substantial gains made by Bhutan towards socio-economic development. Therefore, support of development partners is essential to address the adverse impact of climate change to safeguard the gains made towards sustainable development. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Doji. Our next panelist for this session is Excellency Ms. Maiza Hamid, who is a member of the National Assembly of Pakistan. Yesterday at the Asia-Pacific Carbon Forum, there was a productive discussion regarding how to promote regional synergies to enhance public-private partnerships. Recognizing the importance of interface of the public and private sectors, could you please, Your Excellency, share with us Pakistan's perspective on priorities for climate action at the public-private interface in the region, and what role you see for the UN to support you? Thank you.
Good afternoon. First of all, I'd like to thank ESCAP for arranging this platform and organizing everything. Ladies and gentlemen, I'll be giving you Pakistan's perspective, and I'll start with a statement. It is striking that that communities that work together cope much better than those that do not. Pakistan is ranked on number 10th as a country to have impact of climate change. Government of Pakistan dynamically involved in downsizing the impact amid projects to tame weather conditions. Pakistan is emerging as one of the fastest growing economy in the world. Pakistan, with population of around 200 million, is determined to pace up development initiatives for well-being of our people. The Human Development Index has increased by nearly 50% in the past decade. The economy of Pakistan is now the 24th largest in the world in terms of purchasing power parity and 42nd largest in terms of nominal gross domestic product. In the recent years, we have witnessed fast-paced industrial growth coupled with huge investment in trade and development. This scenario is benefiting from the policy of architecture, major economic reforms, and enhanced security. Pakistan has also made a significant progress in economic and social sector, and national income per capita that has doubled since 1990, and poverty has declined nearly 3 times since year 2000. Climate change has been recognized as a core component of the economic growth model, which linked to development, poverty, and well-being of the population. As a response measure to combat the climate change, Government of Pakistan has initiated a number of policies and institutionalized the measures. These include establishment of Climate Change Ministry and the National Climate Change Policy, which aims to ensure that climatic considerations are mainstreamed in the economy and social vulnerability sectors of the country and the economy, to steer Pakistan towards climate resilient development. Additionally, Pakistan Climate Change Act 2017 has been approved by the Parliament, which established Pakistan Climate Change Council to be headed by the Prime Minister himself. At the national level, it is my pleasure to share with you that Pakistan registered a history and became the first country in the world whose National Assembly passed a unanimous resolution adopting the SDGs agenda as its own national development agenda. The SDGs Secretariat has been established at the federal level and provincial level, and strategies and plans are being developed to meet the commitment by the Government of Pakistan. Pakistan has less than 1% share in global carbon emission. Currently, our emission stands at 405.07 million tons. But this trend is bound to increase considering the country's climb over the development ladder and strives to provide adequate amount of energy to support its needs. Still, as a responsible member of international community, Pakistan is determined to contribute to the global mitigation efforts without compromising on its basic minimum energy requirement. We are officially concerned to achieve climate-compatible development, which is not be accompanied by unnecessary growth in the carbon emission. I believe that introducing instruments like carbon pricing can greatly help developing countries like Pakistan to develop in a more sustainable and responsible way. We also understand that putting a price on emission would help accelerate investment in green energy that reduces carbon footprints. But Government of Pakistan is cautiously evaluating options to introduce the instrument in a way that our economic pace is not compromised. We believe that learning from global best practices can help through further course. Recently, Ministry of Climate Change, Government of Pakistan has strengthened engagement with the Secretariat of United Nations Framework Convention on Climate Change through its Regional Collaboration Center to evaluate understanding the application of carbon pricing instrument could be designed to both fit with the national context, objectives, and priorities, while providing benefits in terms of mitigation, action, and achievement of national determination contribution, and for attracting international funding for climate change. We have planned another consultative workshop on the subject in this month. Just another second. I'm sorry, I just wanted to highlight the major initiative by Government of Pakistan. We have a National Climate Change Policy 2012 approved. Framework for implementation, National Climate Change Policy has been formulated. Intended national determined contribution have been submitted to United Nations Framework Convention on Climate Change. In February 2016, Pakistan becomes perhaps the first country in the world whose National Assembly passed a unanimous resolution. Pakistan Climate Change Bill has been passed unanimously by both the houses of the parliament. The law provides for constitution of policy making. Pakistan Climate Change Council at the apex chaired by the Prime Minister. So one more minute. Consultative group on climate change has been established. National forest policy has been approved by the Council of Common Interest. Green Pakistan program has been launched under the direction of Prime Minister, which with the objective of building resilience and mainstreaming adaptation and mitigation. Under Green Pakistan program, a target of 100 million saplings have been targeted to be planted. Out of these, 15 million has so far been planted all over the country in coordination with provinces. A glacial lake outburst flood project has been approved by Green Climate Fund worth $37 million. And last but not the least, I'm sorry again for taking this time, but I need to mention that Pakistan Parliament becomes the first in the world to go green parliament on solar energy. And it's an exemplary project because we are saving 20 million per year. Thank you very much.
Ms. Hamid just increased the carbon footprint of Pakistan. 2.5 minutes. But thank you very much for that, and also for the excellent initiatives that Pakistan is engaged in, particular by having a green parliament. Ladies and gentlemen, we now move on to our next distinguished panelist, Mr. Bambang Susantono, who is the Vice President, Knowledge Management and Sustainable Development from the Asian Development Bank. Mr. Susantono, we have a couple of questions for you also. How can a regional climate action agenda help to catalyze climate action through appropriate policies and priority actions? The ADB, of course, is a mandate to promote regional investment and capacity building in the area of climate and clean energy, covering both the sovereign and private sectors. Given this role, how can ADB work with the UN and other donors to strengthen regional coordination efforts, including on the establishment and strengthening of platforms that facilitate exchanges between governments and non-state actors to further climate action? Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Honorable distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, allow me first to extend my congratulations to the government of Fiji for hosting a successful COP23 in Bonn. As the word Talanoa transcends, the COP was inclusive, participatory, and also transparent. It is encouraging to see the emphasis on financial flows, greenhouse gas emission reduction, and climate resilient development. And I am pleased to translate this dialogue on the COP23 to the Asia-Pacific region in particular. As we all know, climate change remains a global challenge, one that severely impacts the most vulnerable countries, of which 6 of the 10 are in this region, Asia and the Pacific. Impact of climate change can undermine the region's economic growth and development and reverse some of the gains already made. Multilateral development banks, such as the ADB, play a key role in mobilizing support for climate actions. I see 3 important interventions. First, on the providing access to technology and markets. Second, on creating knowledge-sharing platform while promoting innovations, and third, scaling up finance and fostering financial integrations. This key intervention can be delivered more effectively through regional cooperation and integrations, which has been the foundations of ADB since its establishment. The fruits of our efforts can be seen in roads, power plant, bridges, border crossing, and other points of cooperation throughout the regions. We are also working on making this infrastructure climate resilient infrastructure. The importance of the RCI, Regional Cooperation and Integration, is further stressed with ADB release of its operational plan for RCI 2016-2020 that reiterates the importance of investing in regional public goods, or RPGs, and collective actions, including climate change. RPGs remain to be one of the 4 pillars of our RCI strategy. Our recently established climate change operational framework also highlights our comparative advantage as financial capacity builder, knowledge provider, and honest broker in promoting RCI. So now let me talk briefly to how ADB delivers solutions to climate change toward the regional action agenda. First, on providing access to technology and markets. The Central Asia Regional Economic Cooperation, or CAREC, a partnership of 11 countries, helps Central Asia and its neighbors realize their significant potential by promoting regional cooperation in 4 priority areas: transport, trade facilitation, energy, and trade policy. CAREX seeks to enable energy security through balanced development of the region's energy infrastructure and institutions and stronger integration of the region's energy market to make available adequate volume of commercial energy to all in a reliable, affordable, sustainable, and environmental sound manner. Second, on creating knowledge sharing platform while promoting innovations. In November 2016, ADB launched the regional platform for knowledge sharing on the development and linking of emission trading schemes in Asia and Pacific in partnership with the International Carbon Action Partnerships. The platform aims to foster South-South cooperations by assisting key policymakers in ADB DMCs to periodically interact and exchange knowledge on developing domestic emission trading systems in their respective jurisdictions and facilitating linkages where possible. The platform endeavors to create a cohesive community of practice to facilitate cooperative approaches as envisaged under the Paris Agreement and will support market liquidity, price stability, and harmonization of carbon prices across jurisdictions. ADB also established a regional climate consortium for Asia and the Pacific, a community of practice for the development, dissemination, and application of climate information for climate resilient development of our developing member countries. Third, on the important issue of scaling up finance and fostering financial integrations, ADB through the Asian Bond Market Initiative is supporting ASEAN +3 countries to facilitate regional financial integration and cooperation and also to develop local currency bond market to finance infrastructure projects. Despite recent rapid growth globally, green bonds remain unfamiliar to